Hey, it's the Doc Analyzes Anything, the show where science and psychology meet and we analyze human behavior, including saying especially instead of especially.
Espresso.
Espresso.
Yeah, that gets into the when people bring it up to my attention that I mispronounced something in that minute of a detail, they really piss me off because you knew what I
Do you
meant.
say especially that? Do you say especially?
I don't know. I just say the word and whatever comes out comes out.
It
And
means it's like random.
I mean, I don't mean to say it a certain way, but like, long story short, whoever I'm talking to, they know what I'm saying, and so if they feel out of the way, like if they want to put the energy into correcting me, like
Let's just put it this way: he orders a latte just so he doesn't have to say espresso. Okay, so
Is that true? Do you do that?
no, I'm trying to think of what is an instance that you guys have done like where you avoid saying something or like ordering something at a restaurant just so you don't completely botch it.
I point to it at a
anytime.
restaurant.
Yeah, restaurant. I'm not. We go off Indian all the time, and I don't even try.
Way too many culturally diverse restaurants to ever try to pronounce things and butcher it and then feel like a horrible person for doing so. So I'm just like,
yeah,
that one right there.
What is that? Like a small child, just point at the sign from 15 feet away. That. I want that.
Show me the pictures. I'm just going to point to a picture. That's how I order food.
And then they say it to you, and then they look at you to like confirm that like this pad sui is what you want. You go, yeah, that.
Please, and a bib. Especially does elicit a lot of hard feelings in me. It's definitely not written that way. Certainly not pronounced that way. And learned people I hear pronouncing it that way is very frustrating.
I think exactly is one that for some reason I hear someone pronounce it a certain way and they're doing so phonetically correct, but I'm still like, why'd you say it like that? Like you're over enunciating each sound in the word to the point so you don't mess it up, but now it sounds weird instead of just saying it kind of fluidly.
Like exactly like that?
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah. I don't know if I'm privy to that one.
It's just something I started noticing the last 5 years or so, and usually with very educated people, so probably something that they got called out for previously, so then they were trying to avoid making a mistake.
Yeah.
I think just while we're airing laundry, I want to apologize for anybody watching on YouTube that sees my broken blinds behind me here. The new ones will be here next week.
You got upset, didn't you?
I got angry and just started thrashing around wildly.
Upsetty spaghetti.
All I did was try to close them enough to get like the last little bit of light out so it wasn't messing with the camera, and it just snapped on me. So now I look like I've been living in a tornado.
Proof that the rest of it doesn't always work.
The rest of the office actually looks like a tornado. This is like the one area that actually looked okay, and now it does not. So
you should have had gentle hands. Gentle hands.
Yeah. Let's see those hands.
Go ahead.
Those hands built for fine work.
We said plural.
No
hands.
I have no. I have like zero ability to do fine detail work. It's not me. So can't even write my name well.
Wow. So that happens when you get a doctorate.
Yeah, they used to make me sit there for hours while everybody else was learning math and just practice my handwriting. It did not help. So
yeah. My mom once asked me why they stopped teaching us penmanship, and I had to be the one to tell her they didn't.
When did they?
All right. So Kyle's giving us a firm deadline. We got to get him out of here at a certain time. So I guess.
I know, and I'm sitting here yapping away about how to say words like especially.
Nothing's wrong with being a yapping little goose, Kyle. I support it.
Thanks. Go ahead, Dr. Sparks.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Dr. Steven Sparks. Welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything with my co-host, Kyle Sturry, and our lots of the time, co-host, Dr. Brad Clements.
Like 3/4 of the time.
Yeah.
Wait, what's my my nickname thing this week. It's
I we're running out of time. I wasn't even
baby,
going.
baby blue, baby
baby
blue.
blue. Baby blue. All right, fire
Uh,
away, Doc.
Maybe need some dating advice, but that was before the show, so we won't even get into that. So, is everybody ready to make Kyle uncomfortable? When we first started the podcast, I suggested starting each episode with, and so who are we going to piss off today when we introduced the topic? And Kyle said, "Oh God, please no," because he was afraid people would think we're purposely trying to piss them off, and he doesn't like being hated like I do. And so he
There's
brought up this,
lots I could say about this, but
in general, he brought up the Behavior Mag 5000 just to get me off the track, and I'm like, oh, that's fun, so we'll go with that. But we're not trying to purposely piss people off, but we know when you are talking about a belief that they hold, and then we have a counter explanation for why certain phenomena happen, or there's a scientific explanation for something that they've just always believed works a certain way, it's going to inherently upset people. Also, getting back to, I still think we should have the spinning wheel for the Behavior Mag 5000, but that's just me.
it's too hard to put in. It's too hard to edit in.
Yeah.
Takes too much time.
So today's episode is one of those that we're not purposely trying to upset somebody, but because of some widely held beliefs, there's a good chance we're going to piss off some people. And that's because we're talking about intrinsic motivation, and how this general idea, that this premise that intrinsic motivation is better than extrinsic motivation, just doesn't make any sense. It's blatantly false. It's even illogical, because when you really get down to it, intrinsic motivation is nothing more than the evolution of extrinsic motivation in most cases. Unless we're talking about some very specific things that we'll go into in just a second, you have extrinsic motivation first, and then that becomes strengthening the repertoire, and then that reinforcer becomes reinforcing in its own right. But it also always starts with another form, another source of reinforcement. So it's not what
I just want to reiterate that this content I'm not worried about. I was mostly worried about you making people mad with your essential oil MLM spiel that you were giving everybody. I just didn't want you to
Nothing is
sell.
wrong that Dr. Sparks loves bathing himself in oils. There's nothing wrong with it. I have supported him day one with him putting his lavender peppermint oil all over.
Two things. It's not bathing, but that's beside the point. The second thing is there's
basting.
When I was a child, my mom would put this alpha curia oil in my bath water, and my skin was never so soft. I actually am a fan of using that oil after a bath, and so I can't even argue with it. But again, Kyle's point was, why call ourselves out for saying, hey, we're trying to piss people off here? And I'm saying, yeah, we're going to do it anyway, so we might as well have fun with it. So that was the real point of that.
Everyone, I want you guys to know that was straight off the cuff from me. I never would in 100 years would have taken Steve as someone that actually uses oils on himself.
I won't use essential oils, but that really
Baby
does soften
oil.
the skin nicely. And so, yeah.
Baby
Use
oil.
coupon code Doc Analyzes Anything for one free pack of peppermint lavender. Okay, go ahead.
Peppermint lavender, what?
That's it. That's it. One peppermint and one lavender.
All right, sorry.
Yeah,
continue.
So where was I? Anyways, so yeah, the intrinsic motivation, which we'll get into some definitions here in a second, is just an evolution of extrinsic motivation. And so the premise that one is better than the other itself is illogical. It doesn't make sense. And so first, I guess, let's talk about what those two things are. And it's often talked about in terms of psychologically or in like parenting, things like that, everybody's like, oh no, you need this intrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So intrinsic reinforcement is according to the American Psychological Association, is an incentive to engage in a specific activity that derives from pleasure in the activity itself rather than because of any external benefits. So extrinsic
Yes.
reinforcement is an external incentive to engage in a specific activity, especially motivation arising from expectation of punishment or reward.
And I hear this
So
most commonly, like teachers or parents, like external motivation. I have to give him a lollipop in order to see this behavior occur.
yeah,
Internal motivation. He's internally motivated. He just does it on his own without any reinforcement, quote unquote.
yeah, and so we're talking about it in terms of motivation because, as we, as we've talked about before, the rest of society talks about it almost as a driving force, like why we do things. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about it in terms of motivating operations, where it is just a change in the environment that increases the reinforcing value of an outcome and increases the behavior that would achieve that outcome. And so take what we just said about intrinsic, extrinsic, but then talk about it in terms of the motivation, why people do stuff. It is just to get these reinforcers that are either from an outside source or because something has become internally reinforcing to us.
Mm-hmm. And there is,
Uh,
and then we kind of we put a like a reification to something that doesn't necessarily physically exist in the world, talking about this like internal motivator or like internal drive or like discipline or something like that. Like we put a hypothetical construct to an event and we assign it to like some sort of physical space or physical event.
all right, quiz time. Be red.
Yeah.
What is reification again? You remember? It's been a while since we.
It's you guys use in your behavior analytic work that
I love it.
has a
Keep
strong
going.
purpose for motivation
Yeah,
reinforcement.
no, that's enough.
What letter
So
do I get?
you get a D for effort.
You got a C minus.
C's get degrees. I'm good. Let's go.
No,
Give me the
there's no degree
refresher.
there. So reification is basically to treat a process or a natural, I guess a process, to call it a thing that actually exists. And so in this case, we're going to talk about the process of that becomes intrinsic motivation and intrinsic reinforcement in terms of how it occurs, rather than talking about it in terms of a internal drive or like this internal goodness that we just have, the way that society seems to talk about it. Like, it's not a thing that exists inside of us like people would leave you to believe. It is a scientific process. And so reification is just to call something a thing like it exists in its own right when it does not necessarily exist the way we talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like my
So
hair.
you need the drum roll. You gotta do the
I
rim shot
know.
in the background.
Go
So
on.
yeah, when we're getting to it, like why do people talk about intrinsic or internal motivation reinforcement being better? Why is there this idea that things we do that someone doesn't have to like praise us for or say, hey, great job, or give us a cookie for, is better? And behavior analytically, it's all coming back to conditioned and unconditioned reinforcers. So another review here: unconditioned reinforcement is that is automatically biologically reinforcing to us. You don't have to learn or establish it as a reinforcer. So food, water, warmth, oxygen, removal in aversive condition, or sexual stimulation is automatically reinforcing to us biologically. If you never have access to any of these things and then all of a sudden you do, it would increase the future frequency of the behavior that brings that about. Everything else starts off as an outside source and then becomes reinforcing in its own right to us. So, holding the door for somebody may be could naturally be shaped because you're walking with a box and someone just happens to open the door right as you're walking there, and then that helpfulness is reinforcing to you, and therefore you now do that for the next person, and now it becomes intrinsically motivating or reinforcing that, okay, I feel good because I know that made me feel good when they did it for me. But nobody's learning to open doors for people that way in real life. You know, I mean, you're doing it because the parents like, hey, open the door for that person, or you do it even accidentally, and then they say, oh, thank you, that was such a great help. It's still reinforced by that outside source of them, you know, saying thank you and praising you. And
But it's
so
not essential to our survival or anything like that.
no, and everything, you know, when we are talking about establishing these reinforcers, like even praise from family members, it is because they've been paired with food, water, warmth, the ability to breathe, removal of versus conditions, that sort of thing. Like from the moment of birth, or even before conception, you're hearing mom's voice as you're feeling and receiving this reinforcement. And so that pairing is going on first thing. And that's why it's rare to really notice a time when a small child doesn't find primary caregiver's attention reinforcing. So those things, including attention, are conditioned reinforcers because they've been paired with unconditioned reinforcers. But they are also starting off extrinsically. So anytime we talk about something intrinsic, unless it is one of these very small, like grouping of unconditioned reinforcers, somehow, some way, that only is occurring because it's been paired with an outside reinforcer one way or the other. So during that pairing process, it can even be several levels. You know, you don't have to establish a conditioned reinforcer because it was paired with an unconditioned. It could be because it was conditioned through like multiple steps, and you'd have trouble finding your way back to the original unconditioned reinforcer that came to it. Especially things like attention, where that achieves such a large variety of reinforcement that it would be hard to figure out beyond that attention how it was established in the first place.
You
So
think every reinforcer scales back, like if you pull back the layers, that there's one reinforcer that stemmed from, that's through a pairing process, some unconditioned reinforcer that now this is reinforcing, now this is reinforcing, and so we are just reinforced by things that started with like one reinforcer. Does that make sense?
one kind of reinforcer, one stimulus class would say, a reinforcer class. So
Right.
attention, almost everything we learn as a child has to do with attention. It's either reinforced by attention, it's occasioned by attention. I mean, most of what we get, and we don't mean attention again just because like someone's clapping or saying good job. It could be a glance, it could be a look, it could be a hug, it could be encouragement, whatever. All falls into that category. And so yes, most of the time you can track things back to some form of human interaction or attention, and call and say that that is where it comes from originally. But that's also a broad statement, because you'd have to look at any individual and try to track it back. And most of the time, we don't come up with a concept formation with something such as intrinsic, reinforcement without having many different opportunities to encounter it, and then at that point come up with this idea where there's probably many different examples of reinforcement involved in that as well. So you can't say yes or no to that really, but you can kind of say in general yes, back to attention most of the time. So I'll give an example from my work that I think kind of paints a picture for this pretty well. Had a client who exhibited extremely severe self-injurious behavior. I mean, would seek out hard cement brick corners to bang their head against, frequent skull fractures. We found during like the process of our assessment, there was a lot of different things going on, but one thing we wanted to do in general was try to increase the enrichment of this person's life, because they didn't have really any reinforcers. There was very little, if any, verbal behavior involved, other than having kind of a negative interaction with another person involving target behavior, or just waiting for a caregiver to randomly come by and have a positive interaction. It was just kind of sitting there in a chair, laying there in bed. Even if the TV was on, we're not really paying attention, engaging in it. It's just kind of nothingness. And so I said, we have to find a way to make the environment in general more reinforcing for this person. Let's enrich their life to whatever extent we can. And so trying to figure out leisure activities that would be reinforcing for someone. And it's not like you can just say, hey, here's a board game, or here's some cards, or here's a picture to color, or here's a puzzle to do. And that's just something that's naturally reinforcing to us. Now look at your life, and you might like problem solving. You might like doing puzzles, whatever it is that you enjoy doing in your leisure time. You're like, oh yeah, that's intrinsically reinforcing. It is just in itself reinforcer for me. But as a small child, trying to do a game or a puzzle is frustrating. There's not a lot of reinforcement until you become somewhat good at it. And so getting that attention and having that caregiver there with you, setting it up, talking you through it, helping you, and then delivering a bunch of praise. And then once you finally have some level of success, feeling that pride, that, or what we would call pride, even though that itself is a reification as well, about having made that accomplishment, will reinforce it in the future. And so even when we're talking about something as simple as a board game, it is not reinforcing until it's been paired with the interaction with others and the praise we're getting and that sort of thing.
How simple would you say that you have to start with something that gives a sense of accomplishment to an individual? Because is it possible for it to be like such a small thing, like such as writing your name on a piece of paper? Even though I know to some individuals that would be a huge thing, but to something as like minimal sounding as that.
So I'll talk about what we did with this person, but in general, you can't make a blanket statement. For some people, seeing that level of making just that much progress would be extremely reinforcing. For other people, it'd be if I have to write my name at all right now, or like write anything out by hand, it's extremely aversive, because I just never do it anymore, and my handwriting's so bad that I have to take my time and try to really do it slowly. It would never be a reinforcer to me, but for my kids, once they're able to do that and they're learning to do that, you would see that would probably have a giant sense of accomplishment for them. You know what I mean? And so I say something that small would potentially help start this process of developing some of those things as reinforcers, but it's going to be still fairly specific to the individual as well. So like, what was that, like just a non-answer?
I literally said, you just reiterated everything that I just said and just like dragged it out.
I probably did not understand what you were trying to say. Anyways, so
I liked it a lot.
in more traditional, like autism center type settings, we'll often see someone sit down and like, all right, do this reinforcer, do this reinforcer. And the assumption is that as they get better at it, as they're mastering this skill, you can start removing that reinforcer, and just that accomplishment or getting that done or being able to do that skill will be reinforcing. And so sometimes it is just doing a puzzle and like, all right, here's some praise, here's a toy to play with because you finished the puzzle, we'll go back to it in a minute. And that works as long as the reinforcer that is being paired with the completion of this task is more powerful than the aversive condition of having to do the task. You know what I mean? Like the amount of effort it takes, or in the case of this person, they had been through a lot of these types of settings, and even setting the environment up to seem like you're starting a learning opportunity was going to cause them to become physically aggressive and attack staff. So instead, we had to figure out, how can we set this up in a way that would be like, how would you pair it naturally? Because when you're learning to play a board game with your family, you're not sitting there like, all right, do this, good job. All right, do this, good job. You know what I mean? how I had to go back and design it to kind of fit how we would learn to do these things in another situation. As long as the you have some level of success, you're doing these activities, there's nothing aversive about the activity themselves. They will or should become reinforcing in their own right, or intrinsically reinforcing. So the geez, I really jumped around here. So the point is, this type of task, that this game had to start off extrinsically reinforcing, because there was no, when we sat down to try to get them to play do an activity or play a game with us, the first point, there was no interest in it. And as I'm designing, I'm trying to figure out how to make it seem like, all right, it's family game night. So we're going to set up caregivers. I was there. We had some snacks. We set up the activity. And at first, if the person would just approach us as we're playing this game that they have no interest in it, they're trying to actively stay away from, then I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going here? You have some snacks with us. We're having a great time. And then they walk away and we keep playing the game. Then a little bit later, like, hey, why don't you sit down with us? Not going to place any demand to actually participate. It's just sit down, hang out with us, whatever. Here's the snacks, and we're talking to you like we're having a great time. Maybe the next time we play, oh, here, why don't you put this right here? Just this last puzzle piece. Oh, great job. Look, you finished it for us. Awesome job. And it really was just trying to recreate that. If I was a small child playing a game with my family, why would it be reinforcing? Because the games themselves aren't that special. But having that activity as something that's been paired with their attention, then created something that is reinforcing in its own right. And then from there, now, like, I love problem solving and doing strategy games, or playing a board game that involves a lot of strategy, and that's become reinforcing in its own right to me, even though for some people it's still just the idea of having fun playing a game, and it's not even about trying to win or trying to plan your next move and see how well it's going to work out for you and that sort of thing.
We've started playing Yahtzee as a family. Yahtzee's a great low strategy game. There's like not a lot of, I mean, it's pretty random. There's a little bit of nuance to deciding which category you want to pick or whatever. But nobody in my family wanted to play it. That was like the big thing. Is I brought it. It was Sunday morning. We weren't doing anything, and everyone's like, "No, this is dumb." And I made it kind of like you're saying, but to a different degree. I made it super competitive and like hilarious. So where I was like gambling like in Vegas and rolling on the table, and before long, everyone's around the table trying to get Yahtzees. My son got 3 Yahtzees in a row one time. We were all just like losing our minds, and I was like, "See, I think you guys do like Yahtzee," or it was just a shaping process to get there. But that came to mind as you were talking about getting somebody a little interested in the board game.
Yeah, so this all seems second nature. It seems natural. And I think the real disconnect is people are thinking extrinsic reinforcement means to be someone following around saying, good job, here's a piece of candy. Or I'll give you $5 if you do this. Not those natural interactions that are reinforcing, and then, pair it to become a reinforcer. But again, the board game is not an unconditioned reinforcer. The attention is not an unconditioned reinforcer. It's a 2-step removed from that original biological reinforcer that we have now established as a reinforcer. And you still needed that step of that extrinsic reinforcement in order to pair it and make playing a game become intrinsically reinforcing. And so this is what I mean by it's ridiculous to suggest that intrinsic motivation is better, is because anything that you do long enough and you receive enough reinforcement for will become reinforcing in its own right. It will become an intrinsic reinforcer, but it is just an evolution of that original extrinsic reinforcer or motivation becoming intrinsic to you. And the
I
only
also,
caveat,
I was gonna say, I also, I don't know if you've mentioned automatic reinforcement yet or not. If you did, I missed it. But
not yet.
is there, is that on the doc? Because I think there's an element of automatic reinforcement to talk about with this too.
Yeah, and we talk about when we're doing assessment. It's either reinforced by a tangible item, a escape from an aversive situation. So tangible item can be food, it can be a toy, it can be just anything that you are actually physically receiving. Escape from an aversive condition, attention, or automatically reinforced. And like everything falls into these basic categories. Normally, when we're talking about automatic reinforcement, we're talking about things like, all right, this person is masturbating in a common room of the home. It is not usually, although it could be, attention maintained because of the reaction from other people, but we also know masturbation in itself will be reinforcing because of that sexual stimulation. And, therefore it is automatically reinforced because just the stimuli arising from the action is what is reinforcing. And so a lot of time we're talking about automatic reinforcement being due to those unconditioned stimuli, but that doesn't mean that it's still not automatically reinforcing once something becomes intrinsic. And so I would almost argue, even though it's not how we usually talk about it in our field, really intrinsic motivation is automatic reinforcement. It's pretty much the same thing, because just the sight or the feeling of completing the task that is reinforcing now has reinforced and increased the future frequency of that response automatically.
So can you just like break it down a little bit more just for myself? Like the automatic reinforce or the crap.
Well, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, yeah, automatic reinforcement.
Good
So
job, Brad.
I'd try. So it's just like instantaneous like feedback.
It's usually, we talk about it again, something that we've done stimuli arising from it are reinforcing. So let's take it back to like the autism episode, stereotypical behavior, waving your hand in front of your face. Or as a kid, I'd sit there and like touch my eyeballs because you could see, like the shadow and like the different shapes in your eyes when you did it. Just the behavior itself brings about the reinforcer.
Gotcha.
And so that is how we usually talk about it. But I'm saying it's like another side of the same coin, that if you get enough reinforcement from doing activity, that just the ability to do that activity will become reinforcing in its own right. That is becoming an automatic reinforcer as well, because now that I've planned the perfect strategy, executed it, and won the game, it's not just because or like someone else's reaction to me winning the game, but because what I planned out and did worked, and therefore it is automatically reinforcing to me to see that success.
Gotcha.
And it's not how we usually talk about it, but I would suggest there's no difference between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. And there's like no audience necessary. Like there's no social mediation either. So like somebody doesn't need to give me something or remove something or in some way kind of be involved at all. Like it's all me. Um, and then talking about like internal motivation, like playing guitar. If I have like a really difficult like guitar lick I'm trying to learn, and I get it, I finally nail it after like 20 tries, and there's no one else around, but I'm reinforced by having finally heard that and played that correctly. Now there could be, depends on context. If I'm like at a show and I play that lick in front of like 200 people, then all of a sudden like the attention's probably more reinforcing at that point. But that automatic would be kind of like that quote unquote sense of accomplishment or something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but when you're first trying to play and it doesn't sound that great to you, maybe there's a little bit of the matching of the sound to what you're trying to play. Most of the time, it's
Shaping
someone
process,
sitting.
though.
And most of the time it's people around like, oh, I knew what song that was. That sounded pretty good, and like there is this external source before it actually gets to the point where like, oh, I just played that and that's awesome. So you're muted, Kyle.
There's not a lot of reinforcement for nailing something on like the first try either. It's like, cool, I guess I can play that, but for me and like what I want to hear come out of the instrument as I play it, I'm like, I guess I could probably do something more complicated if that was that easy. But yeah, context is everything.
I am not a musician. I tried when I was younger. It just did not happen. But I will say I expect to do everything perfect on the first try, and so then it's frustrating when it doesn't happen. So
my son is a musician and also expects to do it 100% correctly on the first try, which leads to some fun little frustrated outbursts that I have to walk him through. He's also, I think, better than me at this point. But
after hearing all this, I'm sure someone's out there like thinking, I get what you're saying, but that's not necessarily what we mean by intrinsic motivation all the time. It's like there are people out there that just do the right thing because they're good people. And so I know we talked about this, either it was one of the first couple episodes, either determinism or maybe the dignity episode, but along the same line, there is no such thing as true altruism. No one does something completely selflessly. There's always some sort of reinforcer involved. Otherwise, we don't breathe if it doesn't get us oxygen. We don't eat if it doesn't satiate our hunger. We don't drink if it doesn't satiate our thirst. We don't cover up if it doesn't make us feel warmer or decrease some other discomfort, that sort of thing.
I don't cover up at all.
Yeah, we wish you would.
Also, we should elaborate what altruism is once again, just because I feel like not everyone would know that it. And correct me because I'm coming from like an animal behavior standpoint, but I feel like it's still comparable, where you perform a behavior for somebody else for them to get ahead per se, where in theory it is of no benefit to you.
Well, and that's what we're trying to get at here is.
But I just felt like
yeah. Right. Yeah. No, it is the idea that you do something that you get absolutely nothing out of yourself. It is just for the good of somebody else. But what I'm saying here is that doesn't exist, because even if it's just a good feeling for helping somebody else out, it is still reinforcing to have that good feeling of having done something well. And so if you are doing it because it makes you feel good, you're doing it for yourself just as much or more than doing it for the other person, and therefore it is not truly altruistic. So imagine go outside, you see your elderly neighbor trying to shovel their driveway, and you're like, nope, I'm going to go out there and take care of that for them. Even if nobody else says anything, nobody else notices, you're not getting anything else out of it. You're doing it because you are thinking to yourself, this is the right thing to do, and I feel better as a human for having done that. And we'll keep morality to another time. I'm sure we'll probably have like a whole show on that sort of thing in the future. But we'll tiptoe morality adjacent and talk about why intrinsic motivation seems more moral.
Morality ties in really well to this, I think.
Yeah, I think there's so much we can go for in terms of
yeah, I agree. I'm just
morals and how they come to be and how they're reinforced, that we want to come back to it here. But we're certainly going to have to talk about intrinsic motivation when we talk about morals in the future. So we'll tiptoe around it a little bit. People would say, you did it because of your morals. You helped that neighbor shovel because it's the right thing to do. But the first time you did it ever, most likely it wasn't because you just had this thought, oh, it's the right thing to do. Or maybe that was the first time you actually helped shovel, but something very similar at some point. Your parents said, hey, go help that person. And you either did it because, one, you wanted the praise from them, or two, you didn't want the wrath if you didn't go and help them. And then, maybe they showed a lot of appreciation. Maybe you got a little snack and like on the front porch the next time you come home because they were so happy that you helped them out. And it started off with this extrinsic motivation and then became intrinsically motivating because it felt good. This idea of it makes you feel good to do something. And that is kind of that, getting back to the idea of reification, feeling good, being moral is not something that just happens. It's not part of us. We are not a good person or a bad person, but we exhibit behavior that would be labeled as good or bad because of this history of reinforcement and then increased motivation moving forward.
I'm a good person. I'm just putting that out there.
We were talking about a new company we've started recently, and someone's like, "Oh, you're such a good person helping people out that nobody else wants to take." I'm like, don't put that out there. People need to think that I am objective. There's nothing good or bad about me. It is just we do what we do because we do it. All right, let's just leave it. History of reinforcement. Okay, don't put those labels on me.
You didn't have a choice. You had no choice.
No.
Steve, he does not want to be seen as the good person. He just wants to be seen as Steve.
It's not even that I don't want to be seen as a good person, but as you say that, I'm analyzing it behavior analytically. I'm like, well, it doesn't really exist. It's not a thing. And like, I don't want to get in this conversation. You know what? Let's just not even do this here. You know what I mean? Let's just leave it there and move on without it.
He's a big teddy bear, you guys.
Yeah. So when we're talking about morality and why intrinsic reinforcement seems good, we call people that do these things without external sources of reinforcement good, or treat it like they are better. It's because it seems more impressive or better when you don't have to see that external force. You don't have to see that someone is out here like saying thank you for doing this and delivering things, because it has been strengthened in the repertoire to do it in its own right. It's almost like we reinforce this, we shape it, we create this idea of good with this concept formation, and then act like none of that happened. But nope, you're just a good person. It's part of who you are. It's in your genes. It's in your blood. And now we're going to let you have this dignity for doing these things, even though there's this whole learning history that came about to even get you here in the first place.
You're the crime podcast guy. Do you hear or even subscribe to natural propensity in somebody's genetics towards good or evil?
No, again, this is a rabbit hole we don't have time to go down fully yet. We'll do it later. I do not believe in good or evil or morality in general, at least at a natural level. I believe in, according to our cultural norms, we have things we call good and bad, right and wrong. But to assume there is a good and bad, right and wrong would, and especially in morality towards helping other humans, first we have to have the assumption that helping humans is a good thing. And in nature, the only way to back that up at all, the only real evidence for it is the fact that we naturally want to reproduce and try to maintain the life of our species ongoing. Otherwise, as far as the planet is concerned, as far as the other animals are concerned, we're probably more of a hindrance to their life than anything else. And so only in the context of humans trying to survive as a species does good or bad even make any sense whatsoever. And that didn't come about until we developed language. So no, I do not think that we have any propensity, because I don't think the good or bad exists in the first place.
I kind of knew that'd be your answer. I did kind of volley you on that one, but you do articulate it very nicely.
I appreciate you just setting me up for, the ace there. You know what I mean? And that was strengthened. Just go take it back to another episode, because we got pictures of our 4-year-old playing tennis today, and there's a good action shot of him just winding up and then swinging at it, and
Perfect.
then if the pictures really were in progression, which I don't know if they were, because the other kids were kind of spinning around doing other things, so maybe it was just 3 separate pictures, but it looked like he was about to just whale this thing, and then he missed completely. So
Kids playing sports is the best.
yeah. So yeah, it's, take it back to the invention episode. It seems more impressive when the contingencies aren't clear on how things come about. You know what I mean? In this case, it seems more moral if people can't see the contingencies involved in, oh, yep, I feel like a good person because I've done this. If people can't figure out the logical path between what came before and then how the invention was produced, it seems more amazing to them. You seem to be more of a genius if you can't figure out yourself how that worked. And so it is this idea of, and we've talked about before, like dignity. How do we find reinforcement in ourselves and others in the things we do, and bring them and internalize them as a reification to say, nope, this was me, versus nope, this was just my learning history at this point. Couple other examples that looking at, like returning shopping carts. Does that drive anybody else crazy?
Me and Drew talked about it today on our weekly Costco lunch, and we could not believe how many, and like Costco shopping carts are huge. How people just leave shopping carts in the middle of the parking lot.
So for everybody that doesn't know, Drew is the friend that I congratulated on his wedding several episodes ago, that, and then also said he was a horrible person for not changing the wedding date so I could attend. But yeah, do you think you return cards because it's intrinsically reinforcing to you to do so?
No, well, oh God, okay, let me get down into the definition. I do it because I know how it makes, see, maybe both ways, because I know how it makes me feel when I have a cart kind of in my way. So I'm not going to do that to other people.
And so we could argue that that is intrinsically reinforcing, but it's almost like one step removed escape or avoidance behavior, you know, because you don't, if you do it for them, you hope that they do it for you. And I agree with that. I think to me, it's not even about the fact that this, like, it's rare that I go up to Costco or anywhere else and there's not a cart available. Like, people are still out grabbing the carts. And yes, it makes you feel good to make sure you're doing something and not making their lives harder. But even more so, the fact that this thing could just gust of wind send it front careening into my car is more aversive than anything else.
And avoiding the stares and glares of other people too. I've seen those Instagram accounts where they are the shopping cart police and go after people who leave them places and like put bumper stickers on them and things like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna, just in case that guy's here right now, I'm gonna avoid that.
Yeah. Um, or this morning working with the kids and putting their own jackets on. Like, they both can. They do the flip method, put your arms and flip it over your head. But when we first started teaching that, or I guess you can even go with like toilet training, like someone's there. If I go in my diaper or if someone puts my coat on for me, the end result is me getting clean or me having a coat on. It doesn't matter where the source is. And, you know, it's easier for me just to have someone else do it than learning the process. The process of learning to be toilet trained can be quite aversive for kids. And so there's a whole lot of programs out there to teach your kid like how to use the toilet. And a lot of them, or some of them, say, do not use any praise, do not use any reinforcement. And I assume they just misunderstand what reinforcement is, because if there is no reinforcement, then it's just never going to happen. But it's kind of remind me when I was thinking of that. It's like I saw this was attributed to Stephen King. I'm not sure if it's true, but the old saying, wish in one hand and shit in the other, and see what ends up, what fills up first. And it's like, do the same thing with the diaper or the toilet, see which one fills up first. You know what I mean? But
I'll go do a controlled study on that theory right now. I'll be right back.
yeah. But in general, it's working for the kids. There is no intrinsic natural reinforcement to use the toilet or to learn to put your clothes on, your coat on yourself. But once you start doing it, it's actually easier than relying on your parents' help. You don't have to wait. You can just go use the toilet. And so very short time, like it happens, it's what can sometimes be referred to as a behavior trap, where, all right, the natural outcome, once you get good at this, once it no longer is so aversive that it's easier to do the other way, now it becomes reinforcing in its own right. And so these programs that suggest, oh no, your kid will just want to learn to use the toilet, like, probably not. Or you should want to do well in school, or want to work hard and be a model employee. Had a home manager one time said, you know what, I can't get why these people just don't want to do their job right. So I'm like, all right, well, let's think about it in terms of when you were in high school. Were you a model student, got all A's, aced everything, were on track to go to an Ivy League school, you know, and just decided this was more fulfilling for you? And they're like, no, I was a horrible student, I was just busy having fun. I'm like, so what is the difference between society saying you ought to want to do well in school versus you saying your employees should ought to want to do the right thing and do their job well? There is intrinsic motivation to doing a good job as long as you have a long enough history of extrinsic reinforcement for doing a good job. That matching between what you receive that outside reinforcement from becoming internalized, and matching that performance is what becomes reinforcing, not just, hey, there's something inside me that wants to be, you know, the best employee ever and that sort of thing. And so using added motivation and added reinforcers to get them to that point So it becomes reinforcing. Makes way more sense just to saying like, you know, those 10 kids over there just aren't motivated, so we're just gonna let them fail. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yep.
I'd also put this on, but this was just to rile people up, and we probably shouldn't even bother. But the along the same lines of putting the carts away, it was like putting the toilet seat up and down, and I was just gonna put out there, how did that even come to be, and let everybody just write it and be aggravated, because truthfully thinking about it, there's no way, nothing's more makes more sense up or down, but because if you're going to sit down and the seat's not down, that's so aversive that it makes more sense to just do that, because that affects everybody, not just one set of our population. So I was gonna, if we had more time, let us debate that and rile people up, but I'll retract the statement and say,
Great toilet debate.
yeah, well, just put the seat down, because in the middle of the night, I've even sat on the cold bowl, and that's not fun for anybody.
Well, I just want to know, why wouldn't somebody? I guess, all right, that's getting into the debate.
Well, the point
You've
is,
already been hooked.
I hooked you. I got it. The point is, there's no right and wrong with it, because it's just as easy to put it down as it is to pick it up. I mean, it's the same action. So why do you always put it down? But it is because if you go to sit down and it's not down, it's much more aversive than it is just putting it down in the first place. You know what I mean? And so it seems like it is intrinsically punishing, really, to not do so, but it's just because it's been strengthened so much in our repertoire, at least in our culture, to do so, that it just seems weird not to do it. But then you go into most guys, like if it's a men's only restroom, and like most of the toilet seats are up, just because that, like, why bother, sort of thing.
Yeah, with that, I'm thinking about your classic college bar.
Oh yeah, we're going around some breweries in Traverse City when we were up for a conference actually 3 days ago, and every time I walk into the men's room, it's just like seats are all up. So
Sure, I mean, there's even, you're at a real college-y type bar when you look in, or you go to the bathroom, and then the one stall in the men's room, it doesn't even have a toilet seat.
yeah. Love those places for everything except using the toilet. Yeah. So, all right, you think
or the no walled stalls, or the toilets with no walls in between?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I don't need to hold someone's hand that bad. All right. Any other thoughts, questions, anything you think we haven't tied up here for people's understanding of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and how they're just kind of the parts of the same continuum?
No, I just hope I'm ready for next week's quiz.
Yep. I mean, it's going to keep coming back to you.
I do think we should make your participation contingent on getting these questions right, Brad.
Well, there's another podcast that I enjoy watching, and one of the segments that they do is, it's called Ask Bob, and they ask him questions, and with him it's just like general trivia, because they're poking fun at his lack of knowledge about a lot of things. Yeah, I guess there could be an Ask Me, and it doesn't even have to be strictly related to the topic that we're discussing, but just as a way to see of what kind of BS I can pick up, or what I can impress you with.
We'll consider it.
Either way, it sounds like a great time.
Yeah. All right. So if there's nothing else, then thanks for tuning in, and just try to enjoy your day, your evening, your week. Go out and find the positivity in the world, the bright side of everything. As my Python would say, always look on the bright side of your life, and just be careful, because you never know, that next toilet seat may be open and you may accidentally flush it, and there you get sucked down, and that's it. So at that point, you probably wish the sun was falling the earth and that was all over. So be safe out there, and enjoy your week, weekend, or whatever's going on next.
Ciao.
Perfect. Bye.